All right. So we were just talking, but can you just reiterate who you are, the group that you founded, just to explain it?
My name's Ron Korn. I founded the local 7 Bravo Militia here in Sandpoint. I'm here with Steve Wasoko, and we're here to talk to you about protests and what the militia was doing.
Yeah, so explain what happened. You heard that there were protests in Sandpoint, not a place that you would necessarily expect protests to take place. So what plan did you enact? What happened from there?
There wasn't really a plan. We saw Spokane the weekend before, just literally 2 or 3 days before, the robbing and looting going on.
Spokane's around 60 miles
60
or so, right?
miles away from us. And then we heard that Antifa and the Black Lives Matter was coming to Coeur d'Alene the next day, which was Monday night.
And where'd you hear this? Like online?
Social media. Yeah, it spread around social media, Facebook. So we went down there to Coeur d'Alene, and there was probably 800 to 1,000 patriots all armed up protecting the city of Coeur d'Alene. And nothing happened. There were people down there protesting, friendly protesting.
So did the Patriots outnumber the protesters, or what was the ratio?
By far.
Big time.
Yeah, by far.
There was maybe 20 protesters and 1,000 patriots down there. So
just for a little frame of reference, Coeur d'Alene is about 45-minute drive south of here. It's quite a bit of a larger city. We have 7,000 people. Coeur d'Alene has about 47,000 people, I believe. And then there are a bunch of cities surrounding Coeur d'Alene, like Post Falls and Hayden, and I think the general area down there probably is upwards of 150,000 people or something like that. So it's quite a bit larger. They have a larger downtown. They have a big resort down there, so there's quite a bit more people. And there were just rumors on social media that Antifa was potentially coming to out some of the smaller cities away from Spokane after the weekend, and so everybody showed up downtown Coeur d'Alene. We were down there, Ron and I were down there on Monday night, and like he said, there were probably about 800 to 1,000.
And what you said Monday night? Do you have what was the date roughly? Was it like a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
Oh,
or this was earlier.
I got at least 3 weeks. Yeah.
it was a week after.
Oh, so it was like early June or something.
It was when everything was going on. It was right after the Floyd thing.
Okay,
it was
gotcha.
fairly soon after that. Yeah, man, since we've been doing this 4th of July thing, time has kind of
we'll get to that. We'll get to
gotten
that.
away from us. But I guess it was about 6 weeks ago. I want to say, to be actually, if you wanted, I think it was up here. I think it was June 3rd. I want to say, or something.
Yeah, that was the big sort of weekend when everything was popping
So
off.
I think
right?
Coeur d'Alene was June 2nd, and then Tuesday. If Tuesday happens to be June 3rd, that's the night we were up here.
And what was sort of the atmosphere at this action or demonstration in Coeur d'Alene, where there were so many more patriots, as you call them, than protesters? Like, what was the situation like? What was the atmosphere?
Well, Idaho is a permitless carry state.
Right.
All right, so we can all carry firearms, and now as of July 1st, you as an out-of-stater can also carry a firearm here.
Oh,
in
really?
Idaho.
Even concealed.
Open carry or
Yeah, or
concealed.
Maybe I should take advantage of that.
There you go.
Do they even
Idaho.
allow guys from New Jersey to do it?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially guys from New Jersey.
Okay,
we know how shut down your rights are there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I thought I might be discriminated against, but maybe not.
No. So it's not hard to find, people with firearms around here. It's not hard to find people that are well trained around here. That's what a lot of us do. Many hunters up here. We're all very well trained in the use of firearms.
I'd say most kids that grew up here probably grew up around firearms. You
Right.
know, I mean, their parents are hunting. You can hunt at. I think you can get your junior hunting permit here at 8. And you can hunt big game alone at 11 or 12 now. So kids, it's not abnormal to have, people riding around with guns in their trucks. And
So the atmosphere in Coeur d'Alene that day was just people exercising their rights.
Yeah, it was
essentially
actually pretty happy and friendly. People were
very positive, upbeat. It was amazing. The store owners were coming out, thanking everybody for being there.
Citizens that were driving around.
Was there interactions with the protesters at all?
A little bit, but not. It was on a positive note. It was really weird. there was no reason for them to try and do anything. Obviously, it was stupid, you know. It's 1,000 to 20.
Yeah, they're outnumbered.
Yeah, they were walking around, and people were, you know, some of our guys were having their picture taken with them. You know,
Right.
just you know, it's history, right?
Right.
They weren't really posing a threat, you know, but at the time, we got the information on social media. We didn't know that, and we don't know what was hiding a couple blocks away. We don't know.
Right.
And I think the point to be made is that both Coeur d'Alene and here, I can't speak 100% for Coeur d'Alene. For here, though, especially, I don't think anybody thought that, you know, our Black Lives Matter is a bunch of kids, you know. They're a
Yeah.
bunch of high school kids. I don't think anybody here really thought that they were going to be, that these kids were going to do anything. I think it was more of a point of, are there going to be some outside agitators that are going to, that seems to be what goes on with Black Lives Matter, right? You know, 90% of the people that are there aren't there for some kind of nefarious purpose, you know. And then there's a small group of people that show up in different cities and cause problems because they can blend in and, you know, use that as something. So I think the point here was, you know, for us, when we saw that it was there were two separate things. There was, number one, there was a small protest of high school kids
In Sandpoint.
in Sandpoint, and
Sandpoint, we're about 45 minutes away from Coeur d'Alene.
Coeur d'Alene,
It's a much
right.
smaller place.
and so you probably came into town over the long. Did you come over the Long Bridge?
Yeah.
So, you know, these kids hiked across the Long Bridge, and we were there to make sure that nobody hassled them. You know, that there weren't any.
So protecting their rights.
Protecting their rights to speak what they wanted to.
And what was the attitude of the police toward that? Do they welcome that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have pictures with the sheriffs, and we have a very constitutional sheriff who, you know, believes in First Amendment, Second Amendment, you know, all the amendments, and you know, I think our kind of thing was the Second Amendment protects the First Amendment. You know.
Now, my hunch would be that these kids who organized the protest across the bridge were primarily white, given the demographics of
I'd
Sandpoint.
say primarily, wouldn't you?
I don't know that I saw anybody that wasn't, but there might have been one
Yeah.
or two that, you know.
So we have this interesting phenomenon now where even in, you know, small town, rural America, you have these protests on a you know, a lesser scale, but still relative to what expectations would be around here, significant.
Sure.
In the name of Black Lives Matter or something associated with Black Lives Matter, and they're all white kids.
Yes.
And what did you make of that?
Not much at first. You know, like I said, at first we heard, oh, there's a big Black Lives Matter protest. I don't believe we even knew at that point before we heard that there was high school kids until we saw them.
No, what happened was the weekend before, literally the day before we went to Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint, or not Sandpoint, I'm sorry, Spokane was being looted. Spokane there were stores being broken into, and whether it was the BLM people or Antifa or just a bunch of thugs wanting to ride the coattails of the BLM protests, whatever it was, there were 100 plus there rioting and looting in Spokane. Spokane is 30 miles from Coeur d'Alene.
Right.
So when we heard that this was going to happen the next night in Coeur d'Alene, it was a credible threat. Right? So we're assuming that these guys that had just broken into and looted these stores in Spokane were going to be coming over to Coeur d'Alene looking for something to do the following night. So there was a lot of credibility to that. So that's why we went down on Monday night, went through the whole thing, and then we heard rumors that they were possibly coming up to Sandpoint on Tuesday night. So it wasn't the fact that it was some high school girls and kids getting together marching on the Long Bridge that we were concerned about.
That wouldn't ordinarily arouse your suspicion or anything like that.
Bit.
Yeah.
No,
And to make it
It was
clear
the
also,
wider sort of climate that it existed
in
in.
Spokane, the protesters that were in Spokane, the BLM protesters in Spokane, and the BLM protesters in Coeur d'Alene were not just a bunch of local high school kids. They were adults, and they were you know, protesting. And again, there were problems. To this day, I'm not even sure if some of the stores in Spokane are still open. I know there's a main street in Spokane where the Apple store is, and, you know, Carhartt and all these different places, and all their windows are boarded up, and, you know.
Well, I'll check that out. I mean, I was just off camera. I was saying I was in Minneapolis, and the magnitude of that obviously dwarfs probably even what happened in Spokane by a lot.
By a lot.
But there are places that are just never going to reopen. That are just totally destroyed.
Yeah.
So I mean, in a sense, you can understand why, even if it wouldn't be on that scale, it's still cause for concern.
Cause for concern. Yep. And, you know, after Coeur d'Alene, when we had some potential threats of things coming to Sandpoint, I mean, I had a local business owner call me and say, I'm worried. You I believe that there's,
A Sandpoint business owner.
Sandpoint business owners say, hey, we've heard that there's going to be some problems in town, and nobody was thinking that it was going to be any of the local high school kids that were going to do this. It was more along the lines of
Outside agitators or something.
Busload of people
yeah,
showing
you're
up.
right. Who's going to come in, that was down in Spokane potentially, or any of those people. And there were rumors all over the place, that Antifa's coming in buses, and they're being bussed around. And it's happened before. It's not like it's out of the question that it could happen. And
Antifa coming in buses? I don't know that I've heard that one before, but
Really?
I guess it's possible.
yeah, I think it's definitely happened.
In Minneapolis, for example, a lot of the locals are convinced that the people who really instigated the more extreme chaos, like arson attacks and that sort of thing, were from outside of town.
Sure.
They're 100% convinced.
Yep.
But whether that means they came in on bus
Oh, I don't
bus
mean,
loads,
so
I don't
sorry,
know.
let me
Yeah.
say, when I say come in on buses, I don't necessarily mean from out of the area, but I know people who are very involved in, I don't know if you want to call it politics, but people that are very involved in the Patriot movement down in Portland and Seattle and places like that, where you have Proud Boys and stuff like
Right.
that, and both sides
Busloads
come
of people
in
coming in.
buses.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're getting bussed in from New York. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
That'd be a long bus ride.
Yeah. I'm just saying, people that are coming in all gathered together with a single intent, which is to basically cause problems.
So we're roughly 300 miles from Seattle,
Right.
to give you an idea there. So we're not far enough away from Seattle to, not get the repercussions of what's going on there.
Right.
It's a short day's drive.
Right.
So
6 hours.
And so what was the final result? There was no issue with the Sandpoint
No,
protest?
so we were, in Sandpoint, we had, I don't know, maybe 50 guys, 60 guys that were
Right.
out, armed, walking around, just basically protecting businesses. Every business owner that we encountered was thankful. Thank you for, being out here and watching over our shops. People were bringing us pizza. They were bringing donuts out. Citizens that were driving around were saying, hey, thank you for being out here. I know somebody who was another business owner who, said he wrote a letter the next day to the mayor and wrote something on Facebook and just said, thanks to everybody that came out. It was because of you that I got to go home that night. I would have had been out here guarding my shop,
Right.
But I got to go home and have dinner with my kids that night because I knew there were people out deterring any potential hassle.
And had you ever experienced a protest of any size in Sandpoint before?
Yes.
Oh, there has. Okay.
Yeah.
Or was this the big? But this was the most significant one, or no?
I wouldn't even call it the biggest. There have been gun control marches.
Right.
There have been Second Amendment marches that I've led. That's
Okay.
I lead a lot of the Second Amendment marches and stuff that happen around here. But there's never been anything that I can remember. I've only been here 8 years. Ron's been here, 25 years or so?
Yeah.
I don't remember anything where we ever thought there was going to be violence.
Never.
Right.
So that's the big difference for me. I don't think anybody cares about a protest. Everybody's got a right to speak their mind and protest whatever they want to protest. But this
when you start
was-
vandalizing,
this was
creating
different.
property damage
You know,
to
when-
businesses.
there was never a time when we were like, oh yeah, that protest is going to turn into a potential violent situation, or
Right.
a potential for store windows being smashed, or Molotov cocktails being thrown, or something.
Right.
There's never ever the protests have always been peaceful, and thankfully this one was, and there was no problems.
And weeks later, when we were walking down First Avenue together, we were going in and talking to all of the store owners on First Avenue there, and we met quite a few that were literally concerned, and they were making phone calls to their insurance companies, finding out if they were insured if their windows got broken and everything else. So it wasn't just something that was made up. The whole community was concerned that this could happen.
Yeah, we had at least 2 or 3 business owners say that they called their insurance
It was
that
the
night
first thing they did.
because they were worried, because a lot of insurance policies don't cover terrorism, and then Trump had said that Antifa is now being declared a domestic terrorist organization, and so there were
Right.
people that had
Well, it's complicated as to whether you can connect a specific act of vandalism to
Sure.
Antifa. What does Antifa even consist of necessarily? So
absolutely.
the point is, it's
but people were I think
it's not like the insurance process is going to be easy if you do undergo some kind of damage.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, there are plenty of people I've spoken to in other parts of the country who are only right now in the very early phases of going through their insurance claims, if they had insurance at all, which some didn't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just think,
So what was the so you mentioned that they have like the Sandpoint Black Lives Matter people, they have some set of demands, like what is that about?
Do you have that?
I do.
Oh yeah, I have it on your phone, okay.
Yeah. So the Sandpoint Black Lives Matter.
And these are the high school kids.
These are the high school. We'll get back to that in a second. We call on, there's 6 demands. This list is not exhaustive, and we will continue to make demands and recommendations to make our community more just and inclusive.
Is this on Facebook or what?
No, it's a Google Docs. I could send it to you, certainly.
Okay.
I mean, briefly, we call on all elected officials to make a statement in support of racial justice and the goals of the Black Lives Matter movement. Sandpoint City Council must require and fund annual anti-racism training for all police and city staff members. Community Oversight Board for the City Police Department. On and on and on and on. And apparently what they have said now, they've just taken it.
They should demand that the militia undergo the anti-racism training.
Well, we're the white supremacists, according to them. You know, that's
the Gadsden flag right here. That's a white supremacist
that's
flag,
what we were just
evidently.
told. But so apparently, they have just taken an ad out in our local left-leaning free weekly newspaper, and they are calling on all the members of Black Lives Matter to show up at every city council meeting from now on until all of their demands are met.
Which could be quite a while.
So they're serious, man.
Which could be quite a while.
So,
there's no issue though.
yeah, that's the problem. You know, as we've stated, there's no issue. You know, I mean,
Because there's just not very many black people around here.
There isn't.
and the ones that are here, if you talk to them, you know, I can't say that I've talked to every single one of them, but I have talked to several minorities in town who have said, I've never experienced any racism in Sandpoint. I've never had a problem here. You know, I moved here from LA. I had problems there. I moved to Sandpoint. People wave at me. You know, like there's just, it's a small. I mean, I think of Sandpoint as Mayberry sometimes. I mean, it's a really small town. Everybody knows everybody.
Right. So you have these kids, or you'd say they're not kids, but whoever's behind this statement.
What I'm trying to say is Black Lives Matter. We've had a few different instances in this town. There are some people in this town who I cannot prove, I do not know, but I mean, we've seen it before with like anti-gun marches or, you know, gun control marches where they claim it's a student-led march. And then I go out and I do a public records request and I find out that the names on it are all the
like whoever secured the permit,
the middle-aged people that secured the permits, paid for the insurance, you know. So they're leading these kids, and you know, there's somebody out there. These kids didn't just go, "Let's start up a Black Lives Matter," you know. Like somebody was like, "You guys should start up a Black Lives Matter movement."
Well, I mean,
we'll help you with this, and you know.
So I don't know the specifics of Sandpoint. So what you're saying is plausible, but I know that there have been genuinely organic demonstrations organized truly by high school kids in other parts of the country without somebody aiding them or facilitating it.
Yep.
So I mean, you know, it's one. I'm not sure one way or another necessarily what the precise circumstances in Sandpoint, but it wouldn't surprise me if it really was kids who follow this stuff on social media and they think to themselves, let's just organize a protest. You know, it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
Well, and they bring in other agendas. So the high school kids that we're talking about that marched on the bridge that day, that we were also there too because we didn't know who was showing up. They're not only carrying signs about Black Lives Matter, but they're carrying signs that say fuck Trump. Well, what does fuck Trump have to do with Black Lives Matter? I don't know. To me, that turns their protest into a left-wing agenda protest, right? It's not just Black Lives Matter anymore. It's everything wrapped up into one.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's an all-purpose activist movement that's youth-oriented, that's just whatever they want it to be.
Right.
And then they appropriate sort of the nomenclature, like I said earlier, of Black Lives Matter to sort of give themselves the moral license to do whatever they want.
Until the next thing comes along that they get.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But we actually had, one of the more sad and comical things that I think happened with Black Lives Matter here is a black man named Robert Rosenderry from Pullman, Washington, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, got on to the Black Lives Matter Sandpoint group and made a live message on Facebook and
Right.
basically called them out and said, all I see here is 400 white kids. You guys don't have a problem in Sandpoint. You don't have enough black people to have a system, systemic racism in Sandpoint, and kind of just called them all out. And they ended up kicking him out of the group and calling him an Uncle Tom. And all.
Yikes.
Yes.
So, and he's actually now become a friend, and he's come up here and hung out with us, and he's been to some of the city council meetings, and we've got a very far left activist mayor in our town.
How did that happen?
Man,
How did
if
that
I
happen?
knew of voter apathy.
Huh.
I
I have to admit, I'm a little bit skeptical that far left activist is an accurate characterization of him, but I'll defer to you because I just don't know. I'll look into it.
You will have to definitely look into it,
Okay.
and what you will see is.
Like, what's an example of his far left activism or her?
Well, when he first became mayor, the first thing that he did was wanted to declare Sandpoint a sanctuary city for illegal immigration.
Okay.
Refugees.
You're in Sandpoint right now. This is not the town where they're going to bring, like, we're going to welcome all refugees. And it was just a statement to, I don't know what it was. Essentially, it pissed everybody off, and it had about 500 people show up at the city council meeting. And eventually it got voted down. But he was saying, we're going to welcome them, and we're going to have them here. And, Sandpoint, we don't have enough room for residents here. There's literally...
There's no place to rent.
Yeah, there's literally one of the
people
biggest
that live here and
housing
work here.
shortages ever in this town right now. And it's been that way for years. That's one thing he's done.
He led the Black Lives Matter march. Led it, okay? But he
The
doesn't...
one that just happened?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the mayor led the march.
Yes.
correct.
He's
But
marching with the kids.
He's not involved with any of the conservative deals. So as a leader, wouldn't you want to kind of... If you're going to lead the Black Lives Matter march, which is totally fine with me, but why doesn't he show up at the Second Amendment rally? Why doesn't he show up at the 4th of July festivities? He doesn't show up at any of that stuff. He only shows up at the left
Yeah.
agenda.
So explain what happened with the 4th of July.
Well, so 7 weeks before July 4th, social media came out with the Lions Club, and I didn't even say the Lions Club, it said the 4th of July was canceled. So I, along with a lot of other people, assumed it was the city because of everything that's going on with the city, with the left-leaning politics of the city taking away America's birthday. So I got upset myself. It was my line in the sand, if you will. And I went down to the city and pulled out paperwork to get the permit the next day. Later finding out that it wasn't the city that canceled the 4th of July, but it was the Lions Club who actually puts on the 4th of July event every year here at Sandpoint. So because of the virus,
40 years, 30
40, 50
yeah,
years,
they've
some
done it
crazy
forever.
thing. So
And they canceled it because of COVID.
Yeah.
because of COVID, yeah.
They're older, I think their average age of the Lions Club member is about 68 years old. They normally do fundraising by doing raffles of like ATVs and UTVs and stuff like that. And they didn't get out to do that this year. And they also just didn't, because of their age and their susceptibility to COVID, they just made a unilateral decision that they just were going to cancel this year and not do it.
But it wasn't like there was some regulation or law within the city or within Idaho that would have prevented them from holding it.
No,
Because other places other states that is the
Yeah.
case where you could not hold the 4th of
It
July.
could have ended up that way. I mean,
Yeah.
our permit was based on the city being, so we Idaho has 4 stages of reopening. We have stage 1, 2, 3, 4. We're in stage 4 right
4.
now. At the point of the permit, I believe our paperwork said, as long as the state remains in stage 3 or beyond, the permit is valid. So if for some reason there was some ridiculously skyrocketing number of COVID cases and the governor decided to take Idaho back to stage 2, they theoretically could have pulled our permit for the 4th of July.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you open up a line of communication with the club or anything? I mean, did you contact them or
We
ask
did.
them what their reasoning was
Yeah.
We did.
We did.
and what they say?
It was because of that, because
Okay.
of the virus.
Did you find that understandable?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. And we had to tell a lot of other people too, because they had the same assumptions as we did. You know, because of the virus, they closed down the churches for Easter, right? Easter is the biggest holiday for a Christian, all right? Now they're taking away our high school graduations. My daughter was a senior this year, and they took away the graduations. Now we're finding out that they're taking away our 4th of July. That was enough, right?
Final straw?
Yeah,
Final
I think
straw.
the assumption was that
Yeah.
the city was the one that was stopping
That's
it.
what I thought.
And then it became known that the Lions Club stopped it. But so Ron started up a Facebook group.
Yep.
Essentially, at first, just trying to save the parade itself,
Right.
which is kind of a, man, if you're ever around Sandpoint for the 4th of July and you sit down, it looks like Mayberry. I mean, there's just little kids sitting on the side of the road and
Yeah.
eating
Flags.
candy and little flags.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really
I've been to
small-
those.
it's
I've been
good
to those,
stuff. Real
yeah.
small town parade, but within a couple days, Ron called me and was like, "Steve, I need help. This is actually happening." And we ended up raising, we needed I don't remember what our first goal was. We just kept raising it. We were like, well, we've got the money for the parade. We ended up raising over $25,000
Whoa.
within a few weeks to be able to cover the parade and a festival at the park for children, a free day in the park for kids to have sack races and a dunk tank and games and
And all that money came from
the community.
the citizens of the community.
Right.
It didn't come from Home Depot. It didn't come from Walmart. It didn't come from corporate America.
Right.
It came from Joe and Bill Smith. $5, $20, $100, all within a couple of days. We had $5,000. I think was our first goal to actually be able to put on the parade. And
Right.
once we accomplished that, one of my goals have always been to have the small Mayberry, if you will, barbecue, picnic, games, events, the dunk tank. So we started working on that, and people on Facebook started saying, well, what about the fireworks?
Right.
I'm like, well, what about the fireworks? I mean, I've heard stories like they're 40 grand, right? I'm like, I don't see 40 grand hanging out anywhere, right? So I don't know about the fireworks, but we put it out on Facebook again. We're like, okay, so Steve called up. Steve was able to find last year's contractor for the fireworks show. Called them up, found out it was like $16,500. So we put it on Facebook. We said, okay, guys, we need $16,500 to do fireworks. And a couple of the businesses started donating a couple $1,000s. But then I got a phone call one morning from this guy. He says, hey, Ron, he goes, are you guys still looking for a founding father sponsor? And I'm like, yeah. The founding father sponsor was 16 grand. I'm like, yeah. And it was an out-of-state number. I'm like, yeah, what's going on here, right? It's like, well, me and my family would like to do that. And it's like, I almost fell over backwards. It's like, you're kidding me. And this, not even a business. Him and his family donated $16,000 to save the fireworks show
Wow.
here in Sandpoint. So that's what kind of community we got here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And how did everything turn out?
Awesome.
Amazing.
Couldn't have been better.
Depends on who you talk to.
Oh, there are some people disagree.
Oh, yeah.
they were,
There's a couple. Always is a couple.
Always somebody.
We've got people that think that the whole decision was just completely irresponsible because of COVID.
Yeah.
And that we were going to bring out-of-state people into town, and it was going to create a massive burden on our hospitals. I don't know if you've driven around this parking lot tonight, but every other plate's Washington
Yeah.
already. So we had that, and then because of who Ron and I are, so
They assume there was something political about it, or
So Ron gave you a little bit of history about him. I moved here 8 years ago. I'm a firearms instructor. I'm a firearms dealer. I teach defensive firearms use and concealed carry class. And a few years back, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I had a pretty large Second Amendment march on the bridge. We had a few hundred people there, and I guess that's how my entrance into Sandpoint politics.
so you had a little bit of a reputation then.
Right, so people, and we're fairly outspoken, show up at city council meetings, for things that we don't like or things that we do like, or, whatever that may be. But I mean, people know where we stand. We're not,
Right.
we don't hide who we are, and, we're pretty vocal about, certain things. So there were certain people in this town who said, oh, well, because they're running it, it's just going to be, a conservative.
They thought it'd be a militia parade,
Right.
You know,
Or
or
just-
everybody's carrying guns and their rifles and shooting up the town, kind of thing. I mean, that's literally what some of them envision.
So like the stereotype.
Right.
Big time.
And I mean, we had, and with this, we had policies. We had policies that said no special interest on either side are allowed at the parade. If you want your church group to be in the parade, that's fine. If you're carrying flags and your
Celebrating
message
America's
is to
birthday.
celebrate America's birthday.
But nothing partisan.
If you want to
or-
come and be
Right.
like, anti-abortion or pro-abortion or, we can't have that. If BLM had asked to be in the parade, we would have said no, because it's not a political parade. But on either side, we had to tell friends of ours, nope, you can't have that kind of float, or,
Right.
just to be fair to everybody. But we didn't want to get rid of the message. The message was the normal message, right?
Did you
Independence Day.
encourage social distancing or any of the protocols that are
We kind of had to. We
hand
can encourage all you
sanitizer
want.
and that kind of thing?
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
So
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't,
Can't make it drink. Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
Gotcha.
we have
Okay, so
around all the parks right now, you'll see signs on all the trees and stuff like that encourage social distancing. As you can also see, nobody's listening to any of them.
Right.
But so, I mean, just for a little, I guess,
we took
look back,
precautions.
we took a lot of precautions. I mean, we had every one of the volunteers that volunteered at our parade had to sign a waiver that said that they had not been in contact with anybody that's been sick, had COVID, had any symptoms. We took the temperature of every single person who volunteered.
Oh well,
at the parade.
that's positive.
You know what I mean? We did a lot of things. We did.
That's
what-
proactive. I
Right.
think.
We did
Right.
what we could do. We
Yeah.
can't stop people that are standing on the street from standing next to each other.
Right.
So things like that. But we have 5 counties in the panhandle of Idaho. There's one county above us, Boundary County. We have Bonner County, Kootenai County, Shoshone County, and Benewah County. So there's 5 counties, 250,000 people. I believe we've had a total of 29 hospitalizations
Right.
and 1 death.
Right.
That's it.
But it's been good. I mean, I just look at the chart for the Panhandle health department or whatever yesterday, and it has been going up fairly precipitously over the past couple of weeks. I mean, who knows what if the
the cases
The,
have
case,
been
yeah,
going
so
up.
the cases
Right.
have been going up, but
The deaths haven't been actually are getting smaller because the cases are going up, but the deaths
so
are
we still only
staying
have
at
1 death.
So the
Yeah.
percentages really, I mean, what they're portraying all this fear in the people because they're not giving us the truth. They're giving us half truths. I'm not arguing the point that there's 39 new cases, right?
Right.
That's a fact. The other facts that aren't being stated is how many people have died, how many people have been hospitalized.
well,
right?
who's not stating that should, like the governor or
The Panhandle
God, I
Health.
mean,
The
Okay.
Panhandle Health is saying how many people, how many new cases. Shouldn't be the same person saying how many of those have been hospitalized, how many of those have died. It should be the same organization.
Well, I mean, I went on the website and I saw all that information was on there.
I haven't seen.
I mean, maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought I recall going on the website and all that data is on there.
It does say how many hospitalizations. It does say
They won't tell you which
how many
hospitals.
deaths, and it does say how many new cases. I believe those are the only real stats they have on there. But I mean, I think that to me, I don't know. To me, the only numbers that matter are hospitalizations and deaths.
because we all get
I don't
sick.
really care about if somebody gets. I know 2 people. I know 2 of the people who test, there's 9 new positive cases in the past day. I know 2 of them. One of them has a stuffy nose. One of them has no symptoms.
Right.
I mean, that's so.
So what's the point of reporting just that number? And I'm not saying that the website doesn't. The website may, but it's the news outlets. It's Channel 4, Channel 2, on their social media pages. All they report are the number of new cases.
Yeah.
And that's doing nothing but raising the level of fear in the community because that's all that's being shown.
Do you think there's some level of, I don't know, maybe not fear, but caution or concern that's warranted given situation now in Texas and Florida, some other places where they are having what seems like real problems with surges and things, and obviously what happened in New York, New Jersey. So I mean,
I think regionally, everybody should be dealing with it in their own way because
Right.
everything's obviously like if you look at the Panhandle, I don't see any reason to be worried. Like I'm not wearing a mask around you.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
I'm not wearing a mask right now either, for the record, which people are going to get mad at me for.
you know,
but so be it.
so it's just if I lived in New York City, you know, I mean, like I said, I grew up in New Jersey. You know,
Right.
and I got a lot of friends that still live in New York and the burbs out there and stuff like that. And you know, I mean, if I lived in New York, would I be taking more precautions? Probably, you know, but probably still not as many as I would have in the beginning when the fear factor was, we're going to overload the hospitals. You know, we're going to overload every hospital.
Run out of respirators.
Well, I mean, there were hospitals. I mean, I know from firsthand experience because I know people who work in the healthcare systems in the New York City metropolitan area. I know the hospitals were stressed, so that wasn't made up. I mean, that wasn't just a fear factor.
No, but they kind of went overboard, which I can understand. You know, they brought in the temporary morgues, right, because of all the people that are going to die from this. They brought in all the freezer van trucks and everything else.
They brought in the
Seattle.
military.
And they used some of them in New York. They did.
In New York.
Yeah.
But New York is not the United States of
No,
America.
no.
So, and it was left up to the governors, right? And really, the governors should have actually left it up to maybe even like the county commissioners. Every county or maybe every health district in each state should have said, okay, this is where we're at.
What's your
demographically.
basic take on how it's been handled in Idaho by the governor, by the other
Poorly.
local officials? Poorly.
Very poorly.
Why is that?
Well, like Steve just said, in the northern 5 counties, 1 death. 1 death. Many mom and pop businesses have been lost from 1 death, and we don't even know for sure if that 1 death was actually because of COVID or did they die with COVID, right?
That's been a problem with reporting that I've seen as well. As
Facts again.
You've
It's
got
like,
people that, you know, you've got people that are in a nursing home that might have 4 weeks to live. If they got
test
if
positive.
they got the flu, they probably would have died.
Because there was a shutdown in Idaho,
oh yeah,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
a shutdown.
which I remember people finding a little
Well, see,
odd or
and
interesting.
I mean, here's my beef with the governor and how the governor is handling.
And this is a Republican governor, so people know.
well, he's a rhino.
Okay.
He ran as a Republican.
He ran as a Republican,
Okay.
so we have a lot of that going on in this state. A big thing in Idaho is it's not illegal, but in my mind, it's a little shady. But so the Republicans have closed primaries. So what happens here is all the Democrats switch their party to Republican, and they go vote for the Republican that is the least conservative, and then
Really?
yeah, oh really,
Really?
like
Okay.
yeah.
yeah,
Because wouldn't that be easier to do it in an open primary? So where there's no party registration requirement, then anybody could vote in the primary.
I don't know, but the Republicans and why the Republicans have a closed primary, I don't know the reasoning behind that, but they do. So it's a known fact that there are. I mean, I go down the list. So until about 2 weeks ago, believe it or not, you could put anybody's name in Idaho in the voter registration, and you could pull up who they were registered as. Every single person in this town that I know, 24 people that are very, very vocal leftist activists, you know, the people that I'm talking about that are the ones signing the insurance checks for Black Lives Matter and this, are all registered as Republicans. Including our mayor. Including our mayor does the same
All
thing.
right. I'll take your word for it.
You know, a person that you should probably talk to is Dan McDonald, who is one of our county commissioners. And so it's all public record.
Yeah.
You know, and
So your basic takeaway in terms of the governor is that
he should have left it up to the counties. Boise.
so not issue a statewide order for
Correct.
anything.
Boise, you know, out of county, Boise has 500,000 people, you know, in however big the county is. We have 2,000 square miles here of essentially forest. You know, we've only got 47,000 people in this whole county. People up here, for the most part, moved up here to social distance.
Right.
Already.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
you don't have to mandate that.
yeah, you know, I mean, like, you know, the worst thing in the world for most people is that once a month trip out of the woods to come down to Walmart. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I just think that we have such a diverse state that it'd probably make more sense to let the local local county commissioners, local health districts make up their own rules rather than have a statewide mandate.
That makes sense. So just in closing here, what's the future of the militia movement? I know that's a little bit of an oversimplification, but what do you hope to achieve in the months, years to come? Is there kind of more coordination among groups now? What's your basic summation?
Coordination among groups going on. What we're hoping to do is also, I mean, everybody has their own odd belief of what a militia is, and we've been portrayed as the redneck people, you know, wearing plaid out in the woods shooting their AK-47s or whatever, when in reality, you know, a big part of the militia's job is to educate people on the Constitution. What does the First Amendment say? You know, a lot of people misconstrue that, and they're always talking about the separation of church and state. That is not even in the First Amendment, not even mentioned. People say we're a democracy, and we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. And the easy way to show that is recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the republic for which it stands. Not the democracy for which it stands, but to the republic. So education is a big part of trying to unite people again, bring people together. We're all Americans, whether or not you want to be an American or you're gonna fight and be an anti-American. America was never designed to be a socialized or communist country. In fact, back in the 50s, the FBI was always searching out the communist parties and actually dealing with them. And that was only 60, 70 years ago, right? And now it seems to have done a 180. Now it seems to be like the cool in thing to do or whatever. You know, I'm an Antifa dude and I got the cool hat or whatever it is. I don't really know what they're thinking. But it's not just to be going out there and doing firearms training and getting ready for the end of the world. That's not what the militia is about. Part of the militia is to prevent tyranny. That's the original intent of the militia, and that's the way it's written up in the Idaho State Constitution and the American Constitution. But along with that comes community service, such as protecting the local store owners if something bad comes to town, educating the public, and trying to bring people together.
I think also people would be surprised. I mean, you know, I'm not in the militia, so to speak, but I'm a one-man militia. You know, I firmly believe in my Second Amendment rights. I believe in protecting anything, but as far as to expand a little bit on what Ron's saying and people's ideas about the militia, if they knew who the militia members were and realized that ex-law enforcement, ex-military, current first responders, doctors, lawyers, like they're you know.
So not just guys out in the sticks somewhere.
No, that's the misconception.
Well, yeah, they are in the sticks by choice, but
as you can
to
see,
get away,
it's pretty easy to do.
It's not,
you know, it's
but
like,
you know, I mean, it's just. I think people would be very surprised at the type of person who would consider themselves a militia member, or even just I don't know.
Someone who wants to preserve their American values, what this country was based upon, right?
And I think preparedness is a part of it.
It is.
You know, and I mean,
but we should all be prepared.
And not preparing for necessarily the,
We should have toilet paper. My gosh, really? As we all found out.
Still haven't found out why that was the first thing to go. But I mean,
I was close. I was almost out. It was getting getting dark.
This pandemic, right, is people are always thinking, oh, these people, even if we're not talking about militia, we're talking about preppers, people who prep, people who have, a year's worth of supplies, people who have, ammo, people who have this. It's not necessarily because they think that, the black helicopters are coming over. It could be something just like this, where food supplies do get cut off because, we saw that, we saw we saw going into Walmart and bare shelves and things like that, so I mean, I don't know, it kind of makes common sense to me, but.
All right, well, I appreciate you guys taking some time to chat. It was enlightening, and hope people find it interesting. I'm sure they will. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.